ever considered that the most beautiful things in the world are often the most dangerous? A flawless blue diamond, for instance, can be a symbol of love and royalty. But what if its brilliant facets don't just reflect light, but also absorb the pain, tragedy, and death of every person who ever dared to call it their own? What if its beauty is not a gift from the earth, but a carefully crafted lure for an ancient, patient, and malevolent curse? This is the story of such a gem, a stone whose legacy is written not in carats, but in calamities. The legend begins in the heart of 17th century India. The stone, a massive, deep blue diamond of unparalleled quality, was said to be one of two eyes in a sacred statue of the Hindu goddess Sita. It was a holy relic, an object of worship, not of commerce, but its divine beauty was too tempting. A French gem merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, driven by greed, is said to have stolen the eye from the idol. As he fled, the priests of the temple discovered the sacrilege and placed a powerful curse upon the thief and anyone who would ever possess the stolen eye. Tavernier, the first victim, brought the diamond back to France and sold it to King Louis XIV, who had it recut and named it the French Blue. The curse, it seems, did not forget its original target. Legend says that Tavernier's fortunes soon collapsed, and he was later found in Russia, torn to pieces by a pack of wild dogs. The curse had tasted its first blood, but it was far from satisfied. The diamond now resided in the heart of French royalty, a ticking time bomb of misfortune set to go off at the height of the monarchy's power. King Louis XIV and his great-grandson, Louis XV, wore the gem, and while they lived long lives, their reigns were marked by endless wars that nearly bankrupted the nation, setting the stage for revolution. The diamond then passed to Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette. They flaunted the French blue at extravagant parties, while the people of France starved. When the French Revolution erupted, both the king and queen were beheaded by the guillotine. The diamond, along with the other crown jewels, was stolen during the chaos, vanishing from the public eye. The curse, however, did not vanish with it. The stone is believed to have been acquired by a Dutch jeweler named Wilhelm Fals, who recut it into the smaller, but still massive, stone we recognize today. Fals was soon murdered by his own son, Hendrik, who then stole the gem and later took his own life. The diamond passed through the hands of several others who met with ruin and despair before it was purchased by the wealthy Hope family of London, from whom it derived its modern, deceptively optimistic name, the Hope Diamond. The Hope family's fortune dwindled, and they were forced to sell the gem to pay off their debts. In the early 20th century, it was acquired by a Greek diamond merchant named Simon Mountcharides. After selling the stone, he, his wife, and their child all died when he inexplicably drove his car over a cliff. The curse was growing more brazen, its trail of death becoming more direct and more terrifying. The diamond was a magnet for wealth and power, but it was also a harbinger of absolute ruin. Its most famous private owner was the American heiress and socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean. She purchased the diamond in 1912. When told of the curse, she laughed, believing it was a fantastic story to drive up the price. She even had a priest bless the diamond, scoffing at the legend. She wore it constantly, treating it as her personal good luck charm, even letting her Great Dane wear the priceless gem at parties. She believed herself immune to its dark history, a fatal miscalculation that would cost her everything she held dear. The curse did not strike her directly. Instead, it systematically dismantled her life, piece by tragic piece. Her firstborn son, Vincent, was killed at the age of 9 when he was struck by a car. Her husband, Edward Beale McLean, left her for another woman, drank away their family fortune, and eventually died in a mental institution. Her daughter, Evelyn, died of a drug overdose at the age of 25. By the end of her life, Evelyn Walsh McLean was a broken woman, still clutching the diamond, the sole, cold survivor of a life ravaged by tragedy. After her death, the diamond was sold to jeweler Harry Winston, who, after touring it for several years, made a decision that many believe was an attempt to finally break the curse. In 1958, he donated the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. He sent it not by armored car, but through the regular registered mail, as if to prove it held no power over him. There it has remained ever since, safely behind thick glass, admired by millions, its violent history seemingly neutralized. This is where our story truly begins, with Dr. Alistair Finch, a brilliant but arrogant young gemologist. Alistair was the world's foremost expert on colored diamonds, and he viewed the Hope Diamond's curse as nothing more than a series of unfortunate coincidences, expertly woven together by journalists and jewelers to create a mythology that enhanced the stone's value. He believed that every tragedy could be explained by history, recklessness, or statistics. He saw the curse not as a supernatural force, but as a masterpiece of marketing. Alistair was granted the opportunity of a lifetime. A private, after-hours research fellowship to conduct a new spectral analysis of the diamond for an upcoming exhibition. He would be alone with the gem, night after night, in the vast, silent halls of the National Museum of Natural History. For him, it was a chance to finally, scientifically, debunk the myth. For the curse, it was the first time in over half a century that it would have someone's undivided, skeptical attention. The museum was a quiet prison, but the prisoner was about to have a visitor. The first night, Alistair entered the museum after the last tourist had departed. The silence was profound. The great rotunda felt like a tomb, and the nearby paleontology exhibit, filled with the skeletal remains of dinosaurs, cast long, unsettling shadows. He made his way to the Harry Winston Gallery, the air growing noticeably colder as he approached the famous necklace. The diamond sat on its velvet pedestal, its deep blue color seeming to drink in the dim light of the empty hall, looking less like a jewel and more like a drop of primordial, frozen ocean. He began his work, carefully removing the diamond from its setting and placing it under a high-powered digital microscope. As he focused the lens, he felt it. A distinct, unnatural coldness radiating from the stone. It was so intense it felt like holding a piece of dry ice. He frowned, checking the room's climate controls. They were stable. The powerful lights of the microscope should have been warming the stone, not making it colder. He noted it as a strange thermal anomaly, his scientific mind refusing to leap to any other conclusion. Later that night, as he meticulously recorded data, he heard a sound. It was the faint, almost imperceptible whisper of a woman's voice, speaking in French. He froze, looking around the empty, sealed lab. It had to be the building's ventilation system. He told himself, an auditory illusion created by the profound silence. But then, a faint, sweet scent filled the air, the unmistakable fragrance of expensive, old-fashioned perfume. It was the scent of jasmine and roses, a fragrance he would later read was the signature scent of Marie Antoinette. That night, he went home and slept, but his dreams were a chaotic torrent of horrifying images. He saw a queen's terrified face as she was pushed towards a guillotine. He saw a pack of shadowy dogs with glowing eyes tearing at a man's flesh. He saw a speeding car plunging into a dark ravine, the screams of a family echoing in his ears. He saw a young boy lying still on a paved road. He woke up in a cold sweat. The images burned into his mind, feeling not like dreams, but like fragmented, agonizing memories that were not his own. The strange events in the lab escalated. His state-of-the-art spectroscope would repeatedly crash whenever he tried to analyze the diamond's core composition. He would leave the room for a moment and return to find his carefully arranged tools moved into small, neat, but completely different patterns. The whispers became more frequent, sometimes in French, sometimes in a language he vaguely recognized as Sanskrit. The coldness emanating from the diamond intensified, and now it seemed to linger on his skin long after he had moved away from it. One night, while looking deep into the diamond's facets, he saw something that made his heart stop. It wasn't a reflection. For a fleeting second, the intricate patterns of light and dark within the stone resolved into a clear image. The face of a beautiful woman in a powdered wig and a lavish gown. Her expression was one of profound sadness. Then her face twisted in a silent, agonized scream before dissolving back into the diamond's blue fire. Alistair stumbled back from the microscope, his skepticism finally beginning to crack under the weight of the impossible. He confided in the museum's night watchman, an old, weary man named George. He expected the guard to laugh, but George's reaction was one of grim understanding. The guard told Alistair that no one liked working the night shift in the gem gallery. He spoke of seeing shadows flitting at the edge of his vision, of hearing phantom footsteps, and weeping when the hall was empty. He warned Alistair that the diamond was a sad place, and that it didn't like to be disturbed. George put in for transfer the very next week. Alistair was now caught between his rational mind and the terrifying evidence of his senses. He was afraid, but his fear was surpassed by an obsessive, academic need to understand. He decided on a final, risky experiment. The Hope Diamond was famous for its rare ability to phosphoresce a brilliant, blood-red color for several minutes after being exposed to ultraviolet light. Alistair theorized that this strange energy release might be the key. He would expose the diamond to a concentrated UV beam. Alone, in the dead of night, he wanted to measure the energy, to quantify the curse. He waited until the museum was at its most silent. Around 3 a.m., he disabled the main lights in the gallery, leaving only the small lamps in his lab. He placed the diamond on a pedestal and aimed a powerful, industrial UV lamp at it. He took a deep breath and flipped the switch. The diamond was bathed in the invisible light. He counted to 60, then turned the lamp off. The effect was instantaneous and far more powerful than he had ever imagined. The diamond did not just glow red. It pulsed with a deep, visceral, blood-like light, as if a living heart was now beating within the stone. The pulsing red light grew brighter, casting the entire lab in a hellish crimson glow. And then, with a loud electronic fizzle, every light in the gallery, every screen on his equipment, went black. The power was gone. The only illumination was the terrifying, rhythmic, blood-red pulse of the Hope Diamond. The whispers were no longer faint. They erupted into a deafening chorus of agonizing screams, the voices of men, women, and children, all crying out in a dozen different languages, a symphony of centuries of pain. The intense cold that had emanated from the diamond now flooded the entire room, a soul-deep chill that felt like death itself. In the pulsing red light, ghostly, translucent figures began to shimmer into existence around the pedestal. He saw Marie Antoinette clutching her neck where the blade had fallen. He saw a man being swarmed and torn apart by shadowy, dog-like beasts. He saw the beautiful, weeping face of Evelyn Walsh McLean, her pearl necklaces turning to ropes of tears. They were not ghosts. They were psychic echoes, moments of ultimate agony trapped by the gem. They swirled around the diamond, a vortex of suffering, their silent screams adding to the deafening psychic noise. But then they parted, making way for a new apparition, that formed directly above the diamond. It was a majestic, terrifying figure of a woman in divine, ancient Indian attire. Her face was a mask of cold, celestial rage, and where one of her eyes should have been, there was only a void of weeping, black shadow. It was Sita. It was the goddess herself, the source of the curse, drawn forth by the diamond's unleashed power. The spectral victims were her trophies, their tormented spirits bound to the stolen eye as a testament to her anger. The goddess's shadowy void of an eye fixed on Alistair. She raised a spectral hand, and he felt a wave of pure, concentrated despair wash over him. It was not a physical attack, but a psychic one. He was flooded with the raw emotions of the curse. The terror of the guillotine, the agony of being torn apart, the bottomless grief of a mother losing her children, the madness of a mind destroyed. It was the collective misery of 300 years, aimed directly at his soul. The curse was trying to break him, to shatter his sanity, and add his own echo of suffering to its collection. He felt his mind beginning to fray, his own identity dissolving under the crushing weight of so much historical pain. He saw his own worst fears manifest before his eyes. Academic failure, loneliness, a slow, painful death. The goddess's silent promise was clear. Possess the diamond, or even just disturb it, and all of this suffering will become your own. He was on the brink of screaming, of surrendering his sanity to the overwhelming despair. But a single, rational thought, the last ember of the scientist he had been, pierced through the horror, the apparitions, the cold, the psychic attack. It had all started when he unleashed the diamond's red phosphorescence. The energy was the conduit. It was the key. With the last ounce of his will, fueled by pure survival instinct, he lunged forward, not at the apparitions, but at the pedestal. He swept his arm across it, sending the pulsing, glowing diamond skittering across the lab floor. The moment the diamond was dislodged from the focal point of the UV exposure, the pulsing red light sputtered and died. The room was plunged into absolute, suffocating blackness, and a silence so complete it was a physical pressure on his eardrums. The screams in his head stopped. The crushing despair vanished. The apparitions were gone. The cold receded. The curse had been, for a moment, disconnected from its power source. He lay on the floor, trembling and gasping in the dark, his sanity hanging by a thread. Alistair was found the next morning by the daytime security chief, huddled in the corner of the lab, shivering uncontrollably. The Hope Diamond was lying innocently on the floor, a few feet away. Alistair was incoherent, his eyes wide with a terror that no one else could see. The most shocking change was his hair. The sides had turned a stark, shocking white, the color of bone. He was immediately hospitalized for what was officially diagnosed as a severe psychotic breakdown brought on by stress and exhaustion. He never returned to the museum. he resigned his position, abandoning a brilliant career and his life's work. He refused to ever speak about what happened that night in the gallery, knowing that no one would ever believe him. The official report cited a freak, localized power surge that had triggered a nervous breakdown. The curse of the Hope Diamond was not mentioned. The diamond was cleaned, placed back in its setting, and returned to its rotating pedestal behind the thick glass, its deep blue beauty completely untarnished. Alistair moved to a small, quiet town, becoming a recluse. He lived in a state of perpetual anxiety, forever haunted by the echoes of the curse. He could no longer bear to be around anything of great beauty, be it art, nature, or even a human face, because it all reminded him of the beautiful, terrible blue of the diamond. He suffered from crippling nightmares and was often seen muttering to himself, his once brilliant mind now a fragile prison of terrifying memories. He had not become a victim in the historical sense, but the curse had taken his life all the same. The Hope Diamond remains one of the most popular exhibits in the world, admired by millions of visitors each year. They press their faces to the glass, marveling at its size and its impossible color. They read the small plaque detailing its fascinating history, including the quaint, amusing stories of its curse. They see a geological marvel, a treasure of human history. They do not see the screaming queen, the mangled merchant, or the grieving mother trapped within its facets. They do not feel the ancient, divine rage that slumbers within its cold, blue heart. The curse is patient. It has been contained, its power dampened by the public, sterile environment of the museum. But it is not gone. It is merely dormant, waiting. It feeds on admiration, on greed, on the deep human desire to possess something beautiful. Every person who stares at it, who covets it, gives it a minuscule amount of the energy it needs. It is a slow, methodical process, but the curse has all the time in the world. It is waiting for the museum to fall, for society to collapse, for one last, foolish thief to try and steal the eye of a goddess. So if you ever find yourself in Washington, D.C., and you visit the National Museum of Natural History, you will surely be drawn to the Harry Winston Gallery. You will stand before the Hope Diamond, and you will be mesmerized by its beauty. But as you stare into its deep blue depths, remember Alistair Finch. Remember that you are not just looking at a stone. You are looking at a prison. And be careful what you wish for, because the prisoner is always looking back, searching for a new warden.